You're listening to CPG Launch Leaders, the show where we interview new product trailblazers. Get ready for inspiration and secrets from the front lines of CPG innovation. Now here are our hosts, Darcy Ramler and Allan Peretz.
Welcome to CPG Launch Leaders. I'm Allan Peretz, and I'm here with my co-host, Darcy Ramler. Today, we've got a lineup of 5 of our favorite CPG rebrands.
These brands went from being perceived as outdated, irrelevant, or out of touch to tapping into a modern market and appealing to new generations of consumers. First, let me say what a fun topic we have today. Off the top of my head, I can think of a handful of product rebrands that stand out. However, the one that always comes to everyone's mind is Old Spice. We all remember that 2010 ad campaign, "The Man Your Man Could Smell Like," featuring the charming Isaiah Mustafa as the Old Spice guy. It felt like overnight, Old Spice went from your grandfather's aftershave to something all the cool men were wearing. And today, we're going to look at 5 more stories of splashy rebrands that did it right. Allan, how about you kick us off?
Well, before I do that, Darcy, did you know that I not only met Isaiah Mustafa, but arm wrestled him too?
The question is, after you arm wrestled him, did you smell like Old Spice?
I did not smell like Old Spice, and I did not win, but I just thought I'd let you know. So we'll start with Axe Body Spray, which was a competitor to Old Spice. And this is the brand that transformed from celebrating hyper-masculinity in a way that wasn't loved by everybody to celebrating individuality. When it was first launched in the US in 2002, Axe is often known for its sexually charged marketing, suggesting that using their products would make men irresistible to women. But heading into the late 2010s, that branding was not aging well at all.
It's fascinating, honestly, how Axe significantly shifted their branding over time. I can remember being in my early 20s when this branding came out, and absolutely it is stuck in my mind of how they approached it. But I'd love to dive deeper into the brand's decisions during this transition from, like you said, hyper-masculinity to individuality. Maybe what you feel like the consumer's feedback contributed to that, or societal changes without a doubt had to influence this transformation.
Yeah, it was definitely society changed around the brand, and they had to change as well. And when they did change, it was a really big departure. So Axe started to embrace body positivity, individuality. The hundreds of young ladies running across the beach that was all gone. They featured diverse individuals in their advertising and promoted the idea that everybody could be confident in their own skin. They also expanded the product line significantly to include grooming and personal care products. I remember when they first launched a razor in partnership with Schick, and that was a really big deal. They collaborated with influencers, shifted their messaging towards self-expression and confidence, and they also took a big leap into sustainability, trying to get more appeal with a younger, more conscious audience.
I really feel it's truly commendable how Axe recognizes the need for change and proactively embraced a more inclusive and modern approach to the brand. They moved towards, like you said, body positivity and individuality, which is such powerful statements, and especially at that time, but even today's space. They were able to diversify their product assortment, but while staying true kind of to the core message of confidence, which is truly marketing genius when you can stay that connected and continue to expand your portfolio. Like you said, collaborating with influencers, even at that time, was a big shift. Now it seems like everybody collaborates with influencers, but back in the day in the 2010s, you really are shifting more towards that self-expression. They're really tapping into what resonated with today's generation. And I really feel like Axe understood it's not just about smelling good anymore, but it was about feeling good in your own, in your own skin and letting that generation express themselves. So, brands that are able to evolve with times, they are the ones that truly, for me, know the recipe to marketing success. So I'd love to move on to the next brand and really talk about a rebrand that Lego did. Being a mom of 2, I love Legos, except in the middle of the night when I go to put my 8-year-old to sleep and I step on them. And every parent knows that feeling about Legos on the floor or under a rug. But Lego's turnaround story in the early 2000s is nothing short of inspiring. They literally faced near bankruptcy, but they bounced back brilliantly.
Yeah, I grew up quite a while ago in the 1970s, and Legos were really my favorite pastime with my friends. And I'll tell you, it's one of the few products that you see today that's almost exactly the same as you remember, which is why parents love it so much.
Well, and I think that was kind of the key to what is amazing about this rebranding is Lego had to return to its core values of creativity, imagination, and quality of construction. They realized they had drifted super far away from that, and it made them, what really made them great and iconic was the plastic building bricks. They also invested in product innovation and quality. New lines like Lego Bionicle and Lego Star Wars in the near early 2000s broadened their appeal. And even among older fans, I have to say, a large part of my paychecks have gone to Lego Star Wars. When your kid tells you they want the biggest one out there, they definitely are making some bank off of that. But additionally, I really think what Lego did amazing was they embraced the digital revolution. And what I mean by that is they did it with things like video games. They now have Lego Star Wars on Xbox. They have interactive websites. They really are speaking to really that generation that engages in those digital experiences, and they complemented it with their physical products.
You talk about the interactive experiences. I'll say, in addition to that, that movie with Will Ferrell was pretty darn good. But I've seen some of what Lego launched in the unfocused period, and it's just really surprising, right? Like they had clothing lines, they had jewelry, and they had other things that just ended up being big distractions for them.
And
Right.
I think what you said about the movie is, it was brilliant. They brought in all the characters. They have Batman, they appealed to this generation, but they also bridged the gap to the parents who are buying the Legos in those movies. And, easily could say everything is awesome. Everybody got the theme song, it got stuck in your head. So again, they just continued to go back to the core, but invest not only, I think the fun part for Lego right now is a lot of their consumers, being the parents, were also kids that played with Legos back in their generation.
Absolutely. It's really good to see them back on their game. I love this brand, and I love that they're doing well. So I'm going to fast forward to the most recent rebrand on our list, Minute Maid. In spring 2023, this household name got a fresh new look. After 75 years as one of the largest brands on the market, a supermarket staple, they launched their first ever global rebrand, complete with a fresh visual identity and a worldwide marketing campaign.
This one is an amazing one to talk about because you think about Minute, it's a brand that's almost synonymous with morning routines, breakfast tables. To get a rebrand after 75 years, that is monumental in the book of rebranding. So when you think about it, for decades, their branding has been imagined and ingrained in our minds. So the real question is, why the relaunch and what do you think they were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, this one's really interesting because I never realized that Minute Maid was all around the world, but their goal with this was really to unify the experience for shoppers around the world, ensuring that no matter where you went, flying to this country or that country, you would see the same Minute Maid that you were used to in your own home country. As part of the rebranding, they also launched their first global marketing campaign called Filled with Light. This was major for them. It had TV, digital, social media, and even on the ground experiential activations that leaned into a more youthful aspect of the brand that shoppers hadn't seen before. They really wanted to get people to slow down and enjoy, which is a big part of what you do in the morning when you're drinking your orange juice, while also touting the taste, texture, and nutrition that comes out of Minute Maid. The interesting thing with this rebrand and with the big packaging overhaul is that the updates still keep a nod to the original design. The black Minute Maid tag was updated, but not abandoned. So it freshened things up without leaving loyalists behind. A big contrast to this that we talked about in a previous podcast, you'll remember, was the Tropicana rebrand, where they did stray too far away from what shoppers knew. And they saw a really big dip in sales that ultimately caused them to go back to what they had been historically. We discussed that in our 5 products flops episode. So listeners, please be sure to check that out.
I think you bring up a crucial point, Alan. And really, it is about the balance in branding when you go about doing something that is what you can consider maybe a little bit more of a legacy brand. Minute Maid's strategy to create a consistent brand experience across the globe is definitely forward thinking. And you're seeing more, brands approaching it this way. And to name their campaign Filled with Life, we're talking about being relevant, maybe not necessarily revolutionary, but it resonates so much with the times, especially where we live right now. There's such an emphasis on mindfulness, wellness, and really savoring all those moments. But what struck me the most is they maintain their brand's essence. And that is key. That's why I said it's like that fine balance that you're going to go through. And not only is that from your tagline, but your visuals and so forth, and your go to market strategy with this rebrands. It truly is a delicate art, refreshing your brand to appeal to new audience without alienating your longtime consumers, which is what Tropicana experienced. I think when we talk about, we talked about Tropicana, the incident is a perfect example of how you can go awry when that balance isn't struck. Brands have a history that they have to respect in that relationship with their consumers. And I truly believe Minute Maid really understood the value of that relationship. They chose to really evolutionize over revolutionize the brand for them. And I do think it served them well so far.
Hi, Jesse. What brings you to the airport?
Mike, I'm off to the headquarters to share an update on the big launch.
Oh, I've heard it's selling really well. Care to share your secret?
Well, just between us, it's all thanks to Bold Labs. Their exclusive digital test market research allows you to optimize your product, marketing, and pricing before the big launch.
That sounds fantastic. How can I learn more?
Just visit www.boldlabs.com. It's all right there.
This is the final call for Flight 723 to Chicago.
Looks like we'd better go. Thanks for the tip, Jesse.
See you soon, Mike. And remember, Bold Labs is ready to help your product soar.
Now let's talk about a skincare giant, Olay, or not to date myself, but some of us remember it by its original name, Oil of Olay. Oil of Olay was launched as a product in 1959, but underwent significant modernization and expansion effort starting in 1999. First, they changed from Oil of Olay to avoid the misconceptions of the product benefits.
Yeah, this one is really interesting to me because when you look at history, oil didn't have the same connotations that it does today. So when I think of my skin, I'm trying to get oil off, typically, not put it on. Plus, the brand wanted to go to new places, and the Oil of Olay name was just so limiting for them.
Definitely. I really believe the modernization involved creating a wide range of skincare products on top of the renaming, embracing the scientific advancements that they had made, and really using the evidence based ingredients and bringing those to life to the consumer. Olay revamped its marketing and messaging to connect with a younger demographic while still celebrating women of all ages. They updated their packaging, engaged with customers through digital tools like the Skin Advisor, and even introduced sustainability initiatives. Olay's rebranding is definitely a testament to how well established brands can evolve to meet changing consumers' preferences and marketing dynamics.
Yeah, it just goes to prove that even old brands can learn new tricks.
Definitely.
So now for our final brand rebrand, Pabst Blue Ribbon, or PBR as it's known. PBR's transformation is really fascinating. It went from being an old-fashioned beer that nobody wanted to drink to being a beloved choice among hipsters in the mid to late 2000s.
Being an individual who went to college in the 2000s, I'm sure you'll be very shocked to know that I am very familiar with PBR. I do have to say, PBR's journey is generally one for the books, without a doubt. It is intriguing how a brand can undergo these unexpected cultural resurgences. I mean, from being seen as the dated, maybe even the cheap beer for the youth and older, to suddenly becoming the emblematic drink of the hipster movement is nothing short than amazing. I just remember being at college parties, maybe sharing a little too much here, but the thing would be they would fill bathtubs up with ice and it would be all PBR. So I mean, that's really to me when the resurgence kind of started. And that would have been like in 2005. And then I think they just kind of leaned into it. It's a brand that appeals to the wallet for college students, but they stayed trendy and they kept, I mean, we'll get into this, but they kept the logos, they didn't stray too far away from that natural brand equity that they had built.
Yeah, so unlike some other brands that we've even talked about here today, they embraced their heritage, leaned into iconic packaging, and really tried to position themselves as authentic and simple for those who were rejecting some of the trends that they saw in the marketplace. They also celebrated, like you said, a lower price point and an affordable option, which really resonated with the hipster subculture preferring value.
It goes to show how branding isn't about logos and advertisements all the time. It's deeply rooted in societal shifts, in subcultures, and even ever changing tastes of generations. I'd love to dive deeper into what exactly sparked that transformation and how PBR capitalized on it. It's a testament to really how unpredictable it can be and the power of branding and perception in our society.
I wonder if they deliberately did things to become a hipster brand, or if they just discovered that all of a sudden they were being bought by this audience and leaned into it. I don't know if you have any perspective on that.
For a long time, it was cheap or beer. So, they kind of leaned in instead of trying to fight that or, look at branding of, hey, we need to lean into the taste and the excellence and so forth. They really just said, it's okay to be the cheap beer, but we can make the cheap beer cool and we can make it where, your 21-year-olds to 30-year-olds who are still cost conscious are enjoying this. It started where it became cool to have PBR hats, shirts, like you saw it everywhere. So it kind of became a staple in what I would say that generation to be a trendy, cool item. And then to pair that, I think some of the brains behind it is then you can't go out with all these flashy campaigns because then you're going against the DNA, right? But to go and pair that with then grassroots campaigns and to kind of take that approach truly speaks more about their understanding their consumer, their understanding that generation and how they want to be spoken to.
Yeah, I think we're discovering in all these stories that it doesn't only take brains to rebrand well, but it takes guts as well. Don't know how you feel about that, Darcy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we touched on it of a balance, right? You never know. And I think the beauty of some of these rebrands was even before what we have today and how we're able to test things and take it to the market. And we've discussed that is nowadays we have a lot of tools where we can kind of test innovation or get feedback on it. So when the misses happen, it's kind of pretty shocking because there is so many things we can gather insights, consumer insights from. We can continue to optimize, we can continue to adjust and test when these big brands are going to market. So I love to talk about some of the successes that happened before those tools are around. But I think for me, summing up these five, I would really look at it as being reactive versus proactive in your rebranding, addressing, it's harder when you're addressing crisis versus or scandal versus staying ahead of the market trends. And I feel like they didn't have to necessarily Lego, a little bit with where they were financially going, but they really were trying to be proactive with their rebranding. And then I think we said also, main evolutionary with your rebranding instead of revolutionary. You don't have to have such a departure from that branding. If you are a nostalgic brand, there has to be a nod still to that consumer, and you can't alienate them. You got to find the balance of bringing in that consumer, the new consumer, but yet still staying tried and true. And then I also say maintaining the brand heritage, like we said with PBR. You can adopt a fresh perspective, but don't step away if there's deep rooted heritage in your brand.
Back to the research point you brought up, I got to see some of the Pringles rebranding when it was going on. And it was really fascinating. They did some research where they took away individual elements on the pack to see at what point the shopper no longer recognized it as Pringles. And I don't know if you have any guesses. You have any guesses as to what the most important thing was?
Was it the icon, like the little Pringle icon, the guy?
It was, and specifically his mustache. Like that mustache
Ah,
just stuck out in people's minds,
yeah.
more than the color and more than everything else.
And I think that testing is fascinating to me, right? Because now you're going into the psychology of the consumer. We don't even actually always know. Like, if you were to ask a consumer, what would it be on a Pringles? You're going to get a wide array of answers. They don't always know what they're identifying visually with. It's just, but we learn to train our eye time after time. And then it just becomes the easy thing to say, oh, there's Pringles. And we're naturally grabbing for it. So, I think all of those are key. Like you said, how can you stay tried and true? What was it, for Tropicana that made that huge departure, as we spoke about, that Minute Maid was able to capture to say, hey, our consumer sees this, but we can affect this, this, and this, and still come and elevate the brand and move it forward to be where we want that it to be as a global brand.
Yeah, and it's so different for every brand too. Like every brand, the secret, that secret little bit of magic is just a different thing. So it's really fascinating.
Well, and I think that's the power of a lot of times, when we talk about testing, pairing that qualitative and that quantitative side. You need both to really firmly position yourself for success when you go to market. I would just say that ultimately, at the end of the day, what you're saying is there can be connectivity to, it may be a visual element, it may be a logo, sometimes it's colors even. So, to be able to test all different elements of the brand is incredibly important, because I think always, I just went through this with a prospect, and they're doing some rebranding, and they said, I actually am one of their consumers. And they said, we've gone through all the testing. What, you as a consumer, if we were changing something, what would it be that it would be a departure for you? And for me, it was a color. And I said, you guys have this color. And they got a big smile on their face. And I was like, I'm taking it that you're keeping the color. And they said, yes, that was definitely some of the feedback we got from the consumers is, more than anything, they use a very bright and noticeable, almost neon to the effect color. And that is something they don't want to depart from. They can change the fonts, they can work within some of the logo refinements, but it is that identification of the color and a CPG product for them that stands out on the shelf.
Yeah, well, even think about Tiffany blue, right? Like you see that color and you know what the brand is.
Every woman knows that brand, Alan.
Yeah. So there you have it. 5 fantastic brand rebrands that have shown us the power of transformation, adaptation, and guts. These brands prove that with a little bit of creativity, innovation, and some research to understand what's important, a brand can reinvent itself and stay relevant.
It is definitely a good reminder that we need to keep fearlessly innovating, stay inspired, and let's continue to redefine the world of CPG innovation together. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to CPG Launch Leaders, a show from Bold Strategies Incorporated. Don't miss the next thrilling launch story. Follow the podcast on your podcast player now. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share episodes with your friends. Until next time.